A woman let her dog shit on the airport floor. So I shit on her plans. While walking to my gate at LAX, I noticed a woman whose dog was in the middle of doing its business. The woman was loudly FaceTiming with her back to the dog, so I assumed she didn't notice. That was likely the thought shared by the gentleman who tried to get her attention. "Excuse me, miss?" he said, in a polite tone. The woman glared at him. "Your dog," he sheepishly continued, pointing to the mid-poop pup. The woman rolled her eyes and went back to FaceTime as the man slinked away, seemingly embarrassed. "Some people," she bellowed to her FaceTime companion with no hint of irony, "are just so damned rude." When her dog finished, the woman started walking away, leaving everything right on the airport floor. Another woman tried to stop her. "You're not going to clean that up?" she asked, as shocked as the rest of us were. "They have people for that," the offender replied, disappearing into the crowd, as much as someone yelling into their phone can disappear into a crowd. I stood near the pile and warned people to walk around it while someone else got a maintenance worker's attention. No one said anything. We were so shocked that anyone could be that horrible. When I got to my gate, the woman was there, too. Great, we were both going to Tokyo. When I travel abroad, I get embarrassed by other Americans doing things 100 times less embarrassing than leaving animal feces on the floor of an airport. To make it worse, her dog was now barking at everyone who walked by. I have nothing against people flying with their dogs, I do it often. But it is a privilege I take seriously. My dog is well trained and behaves better than most people. He certainly behaves better than that asshole. Speaking of assholes, there is a pet relief area inside LAX, past security, just 2 gates away from where the party pooper let her dog go to town. It didn't matter, she was the type of person to litter 3 feet from an empty garbage can. While her dog barked at the world, the woman had moved from FaceTiming with no headphones to listening to music with no headphones. I don't like to throw around the word sociopath, but I don't know how else I could explain just how selfish and terrible of a person she was. I'd bet her car was somewhere in long-term parking, parked across 3 spots with paint on the bumper from the child's bike she hit without leaving a note. Everyone else tried to ignore her, sitting as far away from her as they could. I am not everyone else. I sat down right next to the horrible woman. "Are you going to London on business?" I said. "I'm going to Tokyo," she responded gruffly, annoyed that I interrupted her DJing. "Oh," I said. "Then you better hurry. That flight got moved to gate 53C. This is the flight to London." I figured I could give her a little moment of panic as payback for how terribly she was treating everyone. I didn't predict what would happen next. She grabbed her bags and her dog in a huff, and stormed out of the gate without even checking. She was so self-involved, she didn't notice that the monitor at our gate still said Tokyo and almost everyone at the gate was Japanese. Based on her actions, she believed me that the fight had been moved, so she's also an asshole for not thanking me. Some people, I thought as I watched her rush away from the gate without stopping her, are just so damned rude. The flight to Tokyo was at gate 69A, so the 53 gates were on the other side of the next terminal. And I felt guilty knowing she probably berated some poor clerk who had to explain to her that there was no gate 53C. I don't know if she made it back to this flight before we took off or not, but I didn't see her board and I don't hear her dog. Her missing her flight was not my original intention, but it would be a fine punishment for her being so rude to everyone and making a low-paid stranger clean feces off the floor. What makes me wonder if I went too far is the knowledge that Delta only has 1 flight to Tokyo each day. Whoops. Just hijacking this comment thread to point out that Op is actually a pretty well-known internet, TV, comedy, sports personality. Not that it's relevant to the story in any way, just found it a funny coincidence that I recognized his name as a regular on our baseball. Kudos to you, the Hofstetter, if this actually happened. Kudos to you even if it didn't, for the master troll craftsmanship. I think my instinct would have been to walk up behind her and shout to the person she was FaceTiming, "Hey, do you know her dog just shit on the floor in the airport and she's not going to clean it up?" There's a chance that the other person was also an inconsiderate sociopath, but more likely the shame of someone she knew becoming aware of the behavior might have actually motivated her to do something about it. I mean, how is that gonna go over with the person she's trying to rebook with? I don't know how it works, but I'd imagine she doesn't have a good reason to not have to pay for a new ticket, right? Rude ass lady is gonna tell them some guy told me it was at gate 53C. And they are gonna be like? That's not even a gate number. Why didn't you ask an employee? You didn't even check with anyone or look at the signs. Like I said, IDK how that works, but it sounds like a lame excuse on her part. Also, you can bet she's not going to treat the airline employees any better than she treated everyone else, and they probably won't be wanting to go too far to help her out. You really think people like that would understand how terrible of a person she was? When she's aware of this post, she's going to blame the guy for being an immigrant, Jew, black, white, anything that she isn't lol. Also probably gonna ask him money for her flight that she missed. LMAO, if she had the audacity to ask him for the money because of her ignorance, that would be the cherry on top right there. Her own lack of being aware and everything that happened, she deserves to pay the fine of whatever her plane ticket was. Being an airline employee, we sure do. Although I bet someone felt bad for her and rebooked her for free. On the bright side, since it was most definitely her fault for not checking, there's almost no way they would put her on another airline. I imagine she was stuck overnight or had to connect. Being an airline employee, we sure do. Question if you do not mind, sir or ma'am. I just had my left knee replaced 8 days ago and I have to fly to C from MSP on April 1st. If I call the airline, will they be able to set up like one of those carts that I can ride on from the check-in area to the terminal that you're aware of? And how soon in advance should I call and see? Hey Astastic, hope the surgery went well. I'd recommend getting a wheelchair which will bring you straight to the gate from check-in, through security and everything. Where I work you can just request one once you arrive and they'll have someone ready. I'm sure it's the same there. They have to by law. Otherwise, if you want the cart you can also just ask for it when you get there. Safe travels. Not an airline employee, but do call the company you're flying with. They should make accessibility adjustments for you without extra cost. Might just be a loaner wheelchair for use in the airports though. We didn't get a cart anyway, but you might be able to if you call in on time, as I was quite clear about being able to personally wheel my friend to the gate as long as they wouldn't have to walk through the whole airport. Most airlines have an official or at least semi-official policy of putting someone on the next available flight via standby as long as they show up shortly after the flight takes off and or have a reasonable excuse for missing the flight. It's mostly a customer service thing. The idea is if they got a flat tire on the way to the airport, they shouldn't be stuck paying full fare for another flight. This seems to be extended to virtually all situations, even when it is the customer's incompetence. Not all service animals are seeing eye dogs. It is also not hard to get your dog registered as a service animal. Smaller dogs can travel in the cabin in a carrier, but not out walking around. Putting a dog in cargo is torture. Delta also has the worst track record for animal deaths during flight. I will say, while the dog should have been in a carrier, the kind of person who lets a dog shit in the middle of an airport also is likely the kind of person who ignores airport regulations and just lets the animal walk around on a leash. Yes, it is easy to get a pet into the airport and the cabin. To airport doesn't care and the airline just makes sure you pay the cabin fee if it is not an ESA. However, once in Japan, good luck getting through customs if you don't have the paperwork. There are no open, green, gates. Everyone has to hand in a customs form. If she hides the dog she could get into serious trouble. If she does not she would be asked for the paperwork. No exceptions, even for ESA. And quarantine is almost 100% full in Haneda and Narita, which means it might even get put down. This sounds like fairy tale bullshit, too many discrepancies in your story to validate it. For one, the plane wouldn't have left the airport with her luggage on the plane. Because of past terrorist attacks you can argue that maybe she didn't check her luggage. But who flies to Tokyo from LAX with just a bag and a dog? Also, she's already past the security checkpoint, so it would be way easier for them to escort her back to the gate instead of going through checked luggage. I probably would have believed you more if you ended it with, "Then I punched a grizzly bear in the nose." Stopping the escalation of World War III, then everybody on the plane had ice cream because of my efforts. For once, it was a good day on Malayan Airlines work at LAX. It would not be easier for them to find her and escort her back to her gate. Everyone is busy there. The only time any kind staff can escort someone is to do it on their break. With the exception of airline employees that are designated to escort, VIP, and they are usually doing that than to have time to walk someone to their gate in another terminal.